Let's go, Mr. Driver. Sorry, wrong game.
Outrun, the open road, a red car, a girlfriend by your side. Well, I've got all those things apart from Mrs. Chinny by my side, and this is the M27. Outrun was a massive arcade hit, and the follow-up, Turbo Outrun, was intended as an upgrade for the original cabinets as well as a standalone thing, I believe. But Turbo Outrun, well, it's Outrun, but you've got a big button where you make your car go faster and fire comes out the back, because that's what we thought turbos were in the 80s, right? Chase HQ, press a button, your car goes faster. Turbo Outrun, press a button, fire comes out the back of your car goes faster. But the reality is, here I am on the M27 about to go into the hell of the 50 section for miles and miles and miles as I head towards Pompey, and the reality is I'm in a car with a turbo right now, and certainly no fire is coming out of the back, and I'm not suddenly speeding up. Look, I can change it. I can't really do much at the moment, but I'll gently put my foot down there, and the turbo will have been quietly doing its thing, because that's what turbos are. They basically force more air through the engine, kind of magic mechanical stuff. What's that, Rolls Royce? And yeah, it's not what we all thought it was in the 80s. So, with that in mind, let's go look at Turbo Outrun back somewhere more sensible. Oh goodness me, I've got miles of this 50-mile-an-hour limit now. When will it end? When will it end? It says complete spring 2021, which we all know is a lie.
So, back in the studio, Turbo Outrun is the follow-up to Outrun. It hit the arcade in early 1989. You will have probably seen it later in the year, possibly not until 1990, and the home computer conversions came out late 89, early 1990, with the Megadrive version in 92. US Gold did the home conversions, so strap yourselves in. We start off on the C64, which has sampled music that sounds rather good. You don't expect this kind of thing from the SID chip, really. And it sounds, well, not more than good, quite stunning, really. This is all possible due to a quirk of the SID chip that allows it to have a fourth channel that can play sample music. And just listen to this. It's amazing. However, of course, it's a SID chip, and as we know, SID chips are not all born equal. So here we are on my original C64 bread bin. It sounds fantastic. Now let's try it on my C64C. And sadly, the samples are reduced to very quiet, farting noises. That's the problem with the SID chip. Different revisions and a 20% tolerance between the chips anyway. Back to the bread bin so we get the full beefy sound effects. We've got to race across about 15-16 stages to get across America. It's Outrun, and you select manual gears or automatic. There's only 2 gears in manual though. And off we go. I'm playing this game because somebody said that I was saying too many C64 racing games were bad. So they suggested this, so I thought, well, let's try this. It's fairly smooth for a C64 racing game. The left and right motion is a little bit jerky. So controls take a little bit getting used to. Certainly not as smooth as Lotus on the C64. People say I don't give the C64 a fair crack of the whip when it comes to racing games. Well, I like Lotus. These weather effects are innovative for the time, but don't really work. Just looks like, goodness knows what. Outside CPC, and it's produced by ICE. ICE did the original Outrun on the CPC, so yes. There's a bit of waiting around. There's a bit of waiting around all the 8-bit versions because it's a multi-load. It's a rather horrific multi-load on all 3 8-bits. And it's chugging a bit on the CPC. Fired off my turbo. Now the turbo, as I mentioned earlier, what happens is you basically have a turbo, some fire comes at the back of your car, as doesn't happen in your VW Polo GTI when you go to Waitrose. It comes at the back of your car and it overheats, and then you can't reactivate it until the overheat icon goes down. Speed and revs are shown at the bottom left. They're of no use whatsoever because they're too small. I've forwarded it on and I'm cheating on the CPC. I've locked the timer. This chugs too much for a CPC racer. The bar is higher on this machine and this doesn't really meet that level. And there's a gap between levels. You go straight onto the second one. That's if you've got disc. If you've got tape, you'll be loading the next level for about 60 seconds of gameplay. No, you can look at that road engine. It's the same as Outrun on the CPC. It's slightly refined. I mean, the road engine worked. One of the only things in the Outrun that actually worked well on the CPC. Spectrum version. Run this on a +2. My tap image gives me no audio when I load it up, even though I know there should be audio there. So we're going to have to play this in 48K silence for now. Moves better on the Spectrum than the CPC, plays and handles exactly the same way. It's the same code. Now there's an MS-DOS version. It's not by US Gold, it's by Sega in the USA. Now, I've had a little bit of problems getting this loaded onto my 486 laptop. I've had to slow it down and it's still not working because I had to use a cracked version and he's redefined the keys and done various things. So we'll just play this as much as we can. VJ graphics, and there's the course map showing you how you race across America from New York to Los Angeles. At the start-finish line, and there's the car on the left-hand side that you have to race. If he beats you at the end of a group of stages, your girlfriend leaves you and gets into his car. I have no words. Scaling's a little bit choppy, but not too bad. The road engine moves very well, but this is a 486. Okay, a very slowed down 486. So when I tried to run this on a DX4 100, it just went horribly wrong. Couldn't cope with the speed. No sound, as I mentioned, because the way this is being cracked, no PC beeper. There should be PC beeper there. And I also can't activate the turbo because the cracker's locked the controls down but doesn't actually say what they are. Anyway, that's a glimpse of the PC version. That's all I'm going to show of that. Over to the Mega Drive version. It's dated 1992.
Automatic. Get ready.
So you get the samples on the Mega Drive. And here we are in New York, and off we go. And wow, that's a bit of speed. I mean, look at some of the reviews of the Mega Drive version, and some of the magazines really did not like it. Gave it rather harsh reviews. Notoriously fickle children at Mean Machines gave it 42%. Although it seems in line with other magazines such as Megatech 41% and Mega 53%. I don't think it's a 40% game. Not much more than that, but it's not a 40% game. Amiga version. And by the same coding team as did the 8-bit versions. Well, the Spectrum and Amstrad version, not the C64 version, which is done by Probe. Ace gave this 601 out of 1,000 using their rather unique scoring system. This is running on an A1200, so it's going to be a little bit smoother than the Amiga 500. Music's quite scratchy. And just a little bit too twitchy. You're immediately comparing this to games that came out shortly afterwards, such as Lotus, which quite frankly it doesn't get anywhere near. It's better than the original ST and Amiga versions of Outrun though, but then again so a smack on the nose. It has that early Amiga game feel about it. There's the other car that we're racing. Now, change of soundtrack between levels. The levels are so short. Unbelievably short on all of these versions. ST version. Not many cracking teams seem to have bothered with this game. Automation have done the crack I'm using here. Other teams seem to have ignored it, which might indicate how well regarded it is on the ST. Here we are in New York. And this is more the kind of speed the A500 will be running at, but we're on an STFM here. Quite choppy, and yes, okay, now we're down from that Amiga 1200 speed. You can see some limitations here. This is Washington DC level 2. Again, it's a change of soundtrack. It looks as a still on the back of a box or a magazine. It does look like Outrun. Stage 3 on the C64. So far, the C64 is coming out the best of these. I'm not saying it's a superb racer by any stretch of the imagination. Easy to get carried away with this soundtrack, especially if you've got a C64 bread bin. Amstrad version where we appear to be in some kind of orange hell. Too choppy. Far too choppy. We know what the CPC can do. We've got Chase HQ as an example of that. This game is far too slow. And when you get to the end of a group of stages, I think it's 4 stages, you get a chance to buy an upgrade. You can only pick one. And then you're back into multi-load hell, even on disc. And off we go in Chicago. It's nice to have a palette change between each of the levels. You get a good sense it's a different place for each level, but the road is just too cramped. There's too much traffic around. You spend your time trying to read what's going on ahead without too much chance of being able to avoid it. But on the Spectrum, it is a little bit easier to avoid things because you've got a little bit more pace. But then again, the original Outrun version on the Spectrum wasn't as bad either. Especially if you played it on an emulator and sped the machine up. Did I say emulator? The problem is this isn't anything special. It really isn't. On the Spectrum and Amstrad, it's not terrible, but it just doesn't elevate itself up to Continental Circus, Power Drift, Chase HQ, even Lotus, Lotus isn't the best on the Spectrum and Amstrad, but it's better than this. You're slightly better than games like Crazy Cars. Actually, to be fair, you're quite a lot better than Crazy Cars. Which Crazy Cars is a complete rip-off of this, of course it is. Big moon in the sky. But still, there's a nice sense of urgency on the Spectrum. This colour scheme is very reminiscent of the original game, to be honest, on the Specky. Back to the Megadrive, we select high grip tyres. And we're in Chicago. No, don't get in his car. Well, yeah, I'm going to burn you off. Don't come back, Olive. Didn't like her anyway. So there we go on our turbo. And this is the end of the first group stage. End of stage 5 is when you get the power-ups. And this is the Amiga, which is the same kind of orange hell the CPC version was. This little band plays. Well, they've actually stopped moving a long time ago. Like a guest band on Runaround. It goes for Special Turbo. I've actually failed to see when playing this through before what is special about the turbo. Nice busy screen, which means in A500 it's going to be as slow as anything. But on A1200 we are actually flying. But even with this extra speed, it doesn't have that kind of undulation and sense of depth and being there that Lotus has. And it still does this weird thing of having these buildings at the side of the road that basically look like 2D ruins. And of course you think of Lotus 2, it does a level like this much, much better. Is it level 2 on Lotus 2? I think it is. You'll be told turbo is available when your turbo is available. This is St. Louis. The game, and here we are on the ST, evokes the memory of Outrun, the original game of the arcade, which I guess is a good thing since the original conversions on all the systems were so terrible. Even the Spectrum, which is, well, far too slow, even though it plays better than most of the versions. We set off our turbo again. There's not a huge sense of speed when you set your turbo off. Oh, and I've crashed upside down. Forwarded it on. And we're going into stage 9, Miami. We are down in Florida. Which again evokes the feeling of the start of the original Outrun. There's crowds, there's the sea. It's got a nice feeling, but it's just... this level, there's something missing. Miami on the C64. If you also have a thumping soundtrack, I think the C64 version would be a little more underwhelming than it actually is. The music is, I've got no doubt, driving the experience here. And on to stage 13. Okay, the scaling here doesn't really work at all, it just looks like the same graphics flicking back and forth. But again, we aren't experiencing the horrific multi-load. I got a feeling there's not actually a convertible version of the Ferrari in this game, is there? Could be wrong. Stage 14, Denver, home of... I'm going to say Knots Landing. I don't know what... Oh, it's game over. I've run out of time. I didn't do too badly there, though. Stage 14. So, stage 14 on the Megadrive. It's not terrible. Okay, it'd be expensive for the equivalent of over £50 at the time, I suppose. Today. CPC, same level, Arizona, Grand Canyon, something like that. And yes, I've been playing this on a cheat quite a while. I want to get some of these versions through to the end. Music on the CPC version hasn't changed. It's beginning to get on my nerves. And now it's getting really busy. And just a blank screen for however long until we go on to the next level. Here we go, right. Los Angeles, final level. Something the CPC's palette is being better used. Los Angeles stage 16 on the ST, and that should be the end of the game, hopefully. Flash is due to the cracked version I'm using here. Congratulations! And there's that band again. Game over. Course map isn't as nice as that PC version. But still, it's all there and being replicated. And that's the game done in about 20 minutes on all of these versions. Final stage, Megadrive. We're trying to... Is that camper van or a Mini? Turbo available. Let's fire that turbo off to complete the game. And there we go. Game completed. And again, I've been cheating on this version. Cheerleaders run on and wave their pom-poms around, and there's that band again, who don't drum in time in this version. The drummer needs some kind of help. He's just kind of randomly bashing the drums a million miles an hour. Probably because fireworks are being shot at them. Oh no, she's come back to me. I don't want her back. Not after that. I mean, talk about fickle. And that is Turbo Outrun on the home systems. The UK home versions are converted by US Gold, all of them apart from the C64 done by ICE, the C64 version done by Probe. And boy, you can tell which ones have been done by the competent programming team. Probe on the 64 done an excellent version. No, it's no Power Drift, it's no Lotus, but it's a competent racing game on the C64. And how many games like WEC Le Mans do we see that are absolutely dreadful on this system? Spectrum and Amstrad versions, well, they're an improvement on the original game. The Amstrad version looks good in still screenshots, but it doesn't play good. Far too choppy and slow, just like Outrun. Spectrum version, it's faster and better than the Amstrad version. It's everything the Amstrad version should really be. But at best, it's a racing game in the 60s or 600s if you're Ace, and no better than that. At least it moves better than the CPC version, though. The problem is, however, with all three of those 8-bit versions, they have horrific multi-load, so if you don't have them on disc, forget it. ST and Amiga versions, well, again, they're better than the original Outrun game, but many, many things are. In '89, there wasn't so much around, perhaps, but 6 months later, 9 months later, you've got Lotus and games like that creeping onto the scene, and the whole situation changes, and this looks increasingly mediocre as each month passes. Today, no reason to visit these versions at all. PC version, from what I've seen of it, looks pretty nice. I'm guessing a high-end 386 is probably the system to play this on with NADLib sound card, but I didn't get to play too much of it, but at least we got to show some of it. Megadrive version, well, perhaps those magazines were a little bit harsh, putting it in the 40%. It's probably in the 50s, but not much more than that. I suspect the problem actually is with the Mega Drive version is it's released later, and therefore people had already seen games like Lotus on the Amiga and were then comparing that to this more elderly game. Put it out with the launch of the Mega Drive may have been a different story. It's the same reason why people put up with Space Harrier 2. If you're going to check this game out, I suggest you do it on a C64, specifically a C64 bread bin, so you get the advantage of all the samples on that machine. But this isn't even a classic racer, it's just a rather poor update of the original home versions of Outrun. And frankly, you can be playing Lotus, Power Drift, or many other games instead.